Welcome back to the Desert Sanctuary. We're still here with Dr. Paul Fitzgerald. This is episode 79 of the Desert Sanctuary, and we're glad that each of you are here. If you haven't listened to episode 78, please go back and listen to that first. That was the theory, the idea behind focusing, and it was very clear, very understandable. And I hope that you listen to that first, because today we want to talk about first of all, Dr. Paul is with Heart Connection, so the way that he does focusing is called HCS focusing, or Heart Connection Seminars focusing. That identifies his course, and we'll make sure at the end that we talk about where you can find that course. That course is free. It's easy to understand. Helps you get moving in the to dealing with trauma, dealing with things we're going to talk about. So I kind of asked you before we went on if that's always, your inner child, and you were talking about this. It's really just whenever you have trauma, right? And wherever we had trauma, then we began to focus, which brings in the physical, and we talk about focusing. So what I'd like to do is just kind of go through what it's like. It's best, and you do that in your course also. You explain that real carefully, step by step. But what's it like, and kind of maybe we'll weave in our last focusing session that you and I did together, so that maybe they get an idea of how it might work. So I'll just invite you to start in, Dr. Paul. How do you get this? Most people would think of something like a counseling session where there's a lot of questions, where the counselor is asking questions and you're answering questions, and it's different than that, right?
Yeah. It's not so much a logical, linear analysis process. There's sometimes an assumption on the part of people who are seeking counseling or spiritual direction over an issue that they're struggling with. They realize that they're struggling with it. That if I could ever go back and remember exactly where it got started and exactly who did it, that would magically change me. The problem is that doesn't change us. Yeah. In fact, it can become it can sometimes become a dog chasing the tail. It's a running around circle. Like it's like, if I could ever find the answer, except if you ever found the answer, what would you do then?
Right.
And some of the word trauma can be scary for some people. Trauma, really, the way I'm using it, is anything that interferes with the body's, at almost a cellular level, intuitive next best thing. When the body has great wisdom, the body knows what would be best next for the body,
right?
The process. Anything interferes with that is traumatic to some level. And there's a stopped process there. There's a wounded piece of us. You use the term inner child, and we sometimes use that term, but it's more nebulous than a physical child, obviously, within us. The stopped process wants to move forward, and again, sometimes we can get into a loop of, well, if I could ever, well, what do we do with the trauma that happened before we had verbal skills? If we have to remember the day and the time and the place that trauma happened, we may not have had verbal skills to even describe it. When we did not get the attention or the affirmation or the love that our body wanted, the trauma can be absence of something as well as overt actions. And so trauma is used in a little different way, but it's about some process within us that is stopped and stuck. We talked about that in the first segment, so
Yeah.
people can go back and hear about that.
Yeah.
This the human tendency is to figure out, how do I fix this? How do I analyze it? How do I put a name to it? And how do I fix it? Which usually means I'm just suppressing it.
Mm-hmm.
I've never found that fixing or controlling or analyzing emotions was really very helpful. Emotions are not usually analyzable. they don't remedy themselves that way. But sometimes we can use that to suppress them, push them down, get over it, put a lid on it, look like we've done something, can feel better, but then they often come back to resurface. So the focusing process begins with helping an individual begin to be in touch with their body. If it's what we described in the first segment, our body, being aware of our body is really important. And a lot of us are, over and over again, I talk to people and I said, what are you experiencing? And they said, well, I think I'm feeling. When you're thinking you're feeling, you're not really feeling.
Yeah.
And so it takes a bit of time. Some people are very feeling oriented. They're very close to their feelings. Some people are very shut down from their feelings. So it's a different process with both strategies. But essentially, it's about helping someone begin to be aware of what's going on in their body. Usually, the kind of things we're talking about show up as symptoms or awarenesses, parts, whatever term we want to use, in our middle part of our body, our throat, or our chest, our heart, our stomach. Sometimes they show up as heaviness or jitteriness. Sometimes they show up as images. I had a person recently who part that was defending her showed up as a dog that was barking. And it's
oddly enough, there's a dog barking right now.
Whatever shows up,
Yeah.
But it's about, how do I get in touch with that? And so we would do some call it a lead in. I would help you become aware of your body and invite an awareness, for you to invite an awareness of whatever's coming up. Sometimes people know, I'm feeling really sad today. I'm feeling really anxious today. I'm feeling really whatever. So, okay, we'll bring that up. Sometimes it's just, I don't know. I don't have any words. Okay. So we'll do a little meditation. We'll get a little sense of our body, and we'll invite whatever's inviting your attention to show up.
Yeah. So up to this point, it's really similar to meditation.
It is a similar meditation, but here's the distinction.
Okay.
I've been a meditator for a long time. I've done a lot of contemplative prayer. The challenge with a lot of the contemplative models I see is that they can also be a way to bypass. I can meditate so deeply, I go past my feeling stage and I eliminate all my feelings and all my awarenesses. And so I can really use meditation, particularly deep meditation, as a way to move past the work I need to do, that what Keating calls the divine therapy level.
Subdue. You're subduing.
Yeah. So, but it is about contemplative in the sense that I become aware of what's going on inside me. I'm present with myself. And sometimes, again, it shows up in the tightness of the throat, or heaviness in the chest, or jitteriness in the stomach. And so the next step would be to encourage a shift of language. The language we use is so important. If we say I'm angry, or I'm hurt, or I'm scared, that means we've over-identified with that feeling. If we over-identify with the feeling, we're lost in it. The shift of language would be to, I'm sensing something in me feels angry.
Mm.
So something in me feels hurt. Something in me feels sad.
Yeah.
That shift of language does not deny its presence.
Right.
In fact, it's respectful of it being present
Mm.
because my body is sending me some signal to pay attention to.
Yeah. If you just stopped right there and could take it out of the driver's seat and just say something in me. So it makes just right there, makes it smaller than you.
Yeah.
And there's a shift just at the first, this is the first step, the first stage.
step. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. The interesting thing is that some people have to shut down their emotions a lot, and they really have a hard time getting in touch with their feelings.
Mm-hmm.
I recall recently I was working with a guy who was just really out of touch with his body, and he said, I just don't have a feeling. And I said, well, okay, then how do you feel about not having feelings? Oh, well, I don't feel good about that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, we do have an awareness. And sometimes the awareness of not awareness, but it's an awareness.
Yeah.
Little paradox there. So the goal is, how do I have an inner respectful relationship with the awarenesses coming up within me?
Mm.
It's like Carl, if you and I, if we didn't know each other and we made an appointment to meet at a coffee shop, and you showed up and I was there with somebody else and brought them along, you didn't know they were going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
I doubt you would turn around and walk out of the coffee shop and say, I can't go in there because I don't know who that person is.
Yeah. Right.
You probably wouldn't come to the table and say to that person, get out of here. You can't be in this conversation.
Mm.
You probably would walk up and very respectfully say, hi, I'm Carl. And you are. And you would begin to have a curious relationship
Right.
with that person. You'd be interested in why are they there?
Yeah. Are they staying or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be a kind of a model for an internal, respectful relationship with the parts of the awarenesses that show up as these feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So my focusing, somebody may say, well, I'm feeling really heavy-hearted right now. I'm feeling really anxious right now. I'm feeling whatever, or a word comes to me that it's dangerous. Whatever shows up.
Yeah.
So the next step would be to acknowledge it. I even suggest people saying hello to it.
Mm-hmm.
It seems really strange to say hello to something.
Yeah.
But likely we've experienced it before.
Yeah.
And by acknowledging it, I'm not saying we want to embrace it or that we love it or we even invited it.
Mm.
I'm just saying we acknowledge it. It's present.
Yeah.
That would be a respectful thing.
Mm.
I said in the first taping, none of our feelings are bad feelings or good feelings. We can label them as bad or good.
Mm-hmm.
All of our feelings are for us. Our body is for us. I foolishly ask people all the time, even though I know the answer to the question, do you ever have an inner critic? Mm-hmm. Well, the answer is sure. Everybody has an inner critic. Mm-hmm. And typically with that kind of feeling awareness inside, we react to it. We want to get rid of it. We want to shut it up. We feel under attack. Mm. I get that, but then that's not exactly a respectful relationship with that feeling. Mm-hmm. As long as we call it an inner critic. I remind people that probably when they were 13, 14, 15 years old, they probably wanted to do something, to go to a party, to be around some kids, and their parents said, no, you can't do that. We forbid you. Mm-hmm. And the reaction usually is, well, you don't trust me, and you think I'm not grown up, and you think I'm immature, you're trying to hold me back. like the parents are critics. All the time, their real motivation is to protect me.
Mm.
Our inner critics that we feel under attack are usually parts of us that feel worried for us,
Mm-hmm.
that want to protect us.
Right.
When I can rethink that awareness as instead of an inner critic, when I can become aware, it might be a part of me that's actually worried for me.
Mm.
Now, it's not a bad thing to have people worried for you and parts worried for you.
Right.
But as long as I call it bad and judge it and suppress it, I'm never going to gain the wisdom that it has.
Mm.
When I can be with it, I can even say hello to it. I can say, I acknowledge you. My experience is that when we can use that language of something in me feels, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and I can acknowledge it's there, I hear it, it begins to lower its volume because it's being respected.
Yeah.
And at that point, I have awareness suddenly that I really am bigger than what's coming up for me.
Yeah. So can we stop right there?
Sure.
So we're at step 2 where we say hello. A part of me feels, and then we say hello to that. So I remember from our session that I was anxious. Part of me was anxious about some people in my life that I kind of looked up to,
Mm-hmm.
and there was some disappointment and anxiety
Mm-hmm.
there. And I also wanted to kind of bring in right here that sometimes things shift, and it helps that I say, this is not all of me. And so when it's smaller, then I can observe it, right?
Yeah.
But then sometimes it shifts. So I guess maybe to a lower thing or something, because I remember pretty quickly that shifted to a part of me feels rejected.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I was in junior high,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and then I started analyzing and things, but later on, but at that point, just because I said a part of me feels anxious and I said hello to it,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, it's not good or bad. We don't have to fix this right now. Then I began to go a little deeper, right? And so
Right.
kind of where
Right.
I was at that point.
Yeah. I've talked about stop process. Sometimes we have a stopped process that happens early in our life. You've talked about that. And then around a sense of rejection. And then later in life, we're in a situation where we experience rejection and it compounds the first one.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it amplifies the first one. And it may be more current, but when I can be with it, it's a path back to the earlier piece of stopped process.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a statement that I make that some people really just don't like, but I think it's very true. Circumstances don't create our reactions. Circumstances reveal what's in us to react.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When I can be aware that the circumstances in front of me that's happening now are not creating the feelings inside me that want to react, it can become a pathway internally toward the woundedness that's in there for healing and wholeness.
Mm-hmm.
If I always react and cause, you're the problem. If people wouldn't do that, they wouldn't have to act this way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ignoring the fact that my reactions are something to be aware of because they rarely reflect my best self.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can have a pause in there, it's very important to have a pause
Mm-hmm.
when we're tempted to react, to
Yeah.
be able to take a deep breath and have a little pause, a little gap between that event and a little awareness. Okay, something in me is feeling angry right now, or rejected or disrespected right now.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly now I can be with that and I can say hello to that.
Mm-hmm.
The third part of it is really coming back to the beginning of how we talk to ourselves. We started with something in me feels.
Mm-hmm.
We say hello. The third part is to add the phrase in the beginning, I am sensing. I am sensing something in me feels.
Mm-hmm.
The I am sensing makes me the observer of what is inside.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly, I've shifted from it being bigger than me to me being bigger than it.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the course that I've created, you're going to talk about, is called Growing Bigger Than What Provokes You and what's provoking you.
Mm-hmm.
As long as I experience the feelings as bigger than me, I'm going to react.
Mm-hmm.
It's just second nature.
Right.
When I can have a sense of space, a pause, and something in me is feeling hurt, rejected, embarrassed, whatever, I can say hello to that. I am sensing something in me is feeling rejected. Okay, I'll say hello to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that is probably about the time when I said, well, this probably means, and I started to analyze. And in focusing, you don't necessarily, in the spiritual direction, you don't necessarily give advice, but you just kind of led me back and said, maybe I'd invite you not to analyze it right now. Just
Yeah.
what do you?
Hey, you might like to, Carl, you might like to, or see if you'd like to, or notice if it feels right.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's
Not
not about
only,
asking a question, but it's about helping you kind of move back to your body.
yeah. And so when I came back, not only did I come back, but then I kind of got to the real thing,
Yeah.
which for me was having responsibilities in second grade that was way above what I should be
Right.
expected to handle. And I finally just somewhere in this process after that said I couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I shouldn't have been,
Okay.
I couldn't do it. And that was that was the big deal. That was the
What part of what helped you get there was I invited you to
Mhm.
be with that feeling with curiosity,
Mhm.
just like you would be curious about somebody meeting somebody,
Yeah.
and to be curious about it, to be present with it. It can sound really strange to say a part of us communicates with us,
Mhm.
but we all have intuitions, we call them sometimes. Our body communicates to us in strange ways. Um, some people have had a chance to have the hair on the back of their neck suddenly feel like
Mhm.
it's raising up.
Mhm.
Try to do that on purpose sometime.
Right. Right.
Or goosebumps.
So there's a phrase, what are you trying to tell me?
Yeah,
Is that what are you
yeah.
trying to tell?
What are you trying to tell me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Another example that I think probably everybody's experienced, where you leave home and you know you forgot to do something,
Mm-hmm.
and you go through this list of things, and it's like, no, it's not that, no, it's not that, no, it's not that. Then all of a sudden you think of it, and it's like, yeah, that's exactly what it was. That's what I forgot to do.
Mm-hmm.
The way you knew it wasn't the first few things you thought it was because your body didn't register it.
Mm-hmm.
The way you knew it was the last thing is because your body registered it. It confirmed it.
Mm-hmm.
Our body has great wisdom. It's not unusual, Carl, for our bodies to have their own vocabulary. Sometimes people will use a word and say, well, I'm feeling really pressured. Okay, when I repeat it back to them, so you feel something is feeling really pressured.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not exactly pressured, it's aggravated. It's like, well, okay, how does your body know which word is the right word?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a mystical process.
Right.
It's a mystical process. But it registers, the second word registered more deeply than the first word.
Mm.
So being curious with it invites it to communicate. It invites it to help you know how, again, it can sound like a strange language, how it wants you to be with it.
Mm.
For some of us, it just wants to be heard.
Mm.
It's sad, it's angry, it's hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. For others, it wants to be held. For
Mm.
others, it's been beaten up by us enough that it wants to hide, and it doesn't really trust us that we will not beat it up.
Mm.
And it takes some time
Yeah.
for it to trust us.
Yeah.
But to be curious with it and let it be as it is.
Mm.
That's one of the hardest things for people to realize.
Yeah.
Eugene Gendlin has this wonderful line. I can't quote the whole thing, but he says, people think that changing feelings changes something. It doesn't really change anything.
Mm.
It's being with feelings that helps them to change.
Mm. Yeah. So
Being,
where are we at? Are we on step 4?
well, we're around step 3 or 4, somewhere in there.
Okay. So step 3 was adding the word I'm sensing.
Sensing. Yeah,
Something.
I'm sensing. I'm sensing. So I'm bigger.
Yeah.
And I'm sensing something in me and saying, I acknowledge that. Now I'm curious about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm open to wondering about it.
Okay.
And that curiosity is just sitting with it.
Mm.
It's not trying to figure it out. It's not trying to analyze it.
Mm.
But as you experienced in your focusing that day, a piece of information and connectedness came spontaneously as you were with it, curious, that you might not have ever connected logically.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you connected logically, it wouldn't have changed anything.
Mm-hmm.
But by
Very
being,
emotional. Very emotional.
yeah, it was very emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And the emotion was there all the time,
Mm-hmm.
but it was stopped.
Mm-hmm.
As a second grader, the sadness and the burden of being overly responsible,
Mm-hmm.
you might have been sad about that privately, but you were never sad about that publicly.
Right.
You had to suck it up.
Mm-hmm.
You had to be the big boy,
Yeah.
over and over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And to be too sad about that would have gotten in the way of doing that, even
Right.
though your body probably wanted to be sad.
Right.
So it was a stop process.
Right.
And when you were able to, through this process, be back with that boy,
Mm-hmm.
not criticizing him for not for being not criticizing him for not doing something different.
Yeah. I wasn't angry at my parents either.
Yeah,
Well,
it wasn't about being angry with them. It was a reality, a situation,
right. Right.
And then I'll lose the fifth process. As we looked at that, we came to, well, no wonder you were triggered into disrespect now.
You literally said that.
Yeah.
No wonder.
Yeah. And the no wonder sounds so simple, but that's
Right.
what we do with other people all the time.
Mm-hmm.
We hear their story and we say, well, no wonder that's a problem for you today. It's no wonder. What? Sure, I get that.
Mm-hmm.
But do we say it to ourselves?
Right.
In a self, we can say no wonder in a way that's an excuse.
Mm-hmm.
And we know the difference.
Right.
But when we can say, well, no wonder that's a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
No wonder I feel overly responsible.
Right.
No wonder I don't feel good when people don't respond a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah.
goes way back.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and in the process of doing that, a shift happens. The the other thing that's kind of more technical, but the emotions we feel are not really the something that is in us. The emotions we feel are the signal that there's something in us is there.
Mm.
The something in us is a felt sense.
Mm.
And it's hard to put a word to it. It's like a knowing,
Mm-hmm.
and we put words to it, but it isn't quite right. But it's a felt sense.
Mm.
And when we come through the process, and if there's a shift, we call it a felt shift. You feel it in your body. It's like a breath of fresh air. It's like a release. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's like, where'd that come from?
Yeah. Right.
And you didn't get there logically,
Mm-hmm.
because logic was about control.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. So, go back through those 5 steps again. So something in me feels saying hello. I'm sensing something in me. And step 4 is
I forget how I worded it in the lessons, but it's about being curious.
being
It's about
curious.
being with it.
What are you trying to tell me?
Yeah, and just it's what's the message here? Is there something for me to pay attention to?
Right. And
I'll give you an illustration. Today, I was focusing with somebody who's gone through some professional training with me, and I got a point where I felt really kind of in my stomach. I had this wavy vibration kind of thing going on,
mm,
and I identified something in me, a part that was concerned that I might not have everything perfectly in place to know everything about focusing.
mm,
And there was another part of me that was excited about teaching people some focusing.
mm-hmm.
And they were both there.
Right.
And I'm bigger than they are. And so I can say hello to both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it began to quiet down. And then I realized that the part that I was hearing as you don't know enough yet was really worried about not delivering enough for people, letting them down.
Mm-hmm.
And as I began to worry, what it was worried about, it was worried about them not having a good experience, not having the best experience.
Mm.
As I was with that, I realized it actually was for me to help me be adequate in what I do.
Mm.
Where it started as a pressuring me and a little fear,
Mm-hmm.
by being with it and it reducing in intensity, I was able to realize, no, it's really for me. All our feelings are for me.
Mm.
I didn't have to change it. I just be with it. And
Mm-hmm.
so there was a kind of a dynamic dance between the wanting and the wanting to do it well.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a release.
Right. Neither one of those was driving the car.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. A way to identify a part that is in us as opposed to just our sense of self, because it's not about becoming an automaton. It's not about becoming a person with no feeling.
Right.
I can be myself in presence and be sad or be confused or whatever. I mean, but
Mm-hmm.
when the part is pressuring me, if there's fear, if there's anxiety, if there's distraction from present, that's probably a part, not my own genuine, authentic feelings.
Is it a difference of responding and reacting?
Responding, reacting. Reacting is always a clue that something in me is reacting. And if I can be with it with a sense of self-respect and a sense of humility and a sense of self-compassion,
Hmm.
it can lead me back to a place of brokenness.
Yeah. You just mentioned compassion. In the last year, I've heard you mention that word more than ever. Not that you didn't teach that before,
Yeah,
but compassion's a big part of this, isn't it?
absolutely. Yeah. Self-compassion. This story comes to me and it kind of ties in a little bit. So maybe.
Mhm.
uh, Margaret Mead, many people know her name. She was an anthropologist. She studied living cultures in Samoa and other islands and had fascinating insights. But she also studied ancient cultures too. And there's a story of her teaching a class, and one of the students, younger students, asked her, "What are some of the early indicators of humans becoming civilized in the process of development?" And he was expecting, pottery or instruments, tools, whatever. And she said, the earliest indicator is a healed femur. A broken leg is healed. And it was confusing to the group. And she said, well, typically wild animals, if an animal breaks their leg, the herd may stay around a little bit, but they're gone.
Or they eat him.
And they get eaten. If a leg is broken and somebody attended to it and fed the person long enough for it to heal, that was a demonstration of empathy and compassion.
Mm.
Empathy and compassion is at the core of who we are.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge for us is that when I am over-identified with the parts in me, or under-identified, I am functioning as an I, me. When I am not over-identified with those parts, they can be there. Now I can function as a we, not just an I. When the parts are there, it's going to be, well, we would call it egocentric.
Mm-hmm.
We would call it looking out for number one. And that's a big problem in our whole culture. We've become a very I-oriented culture. Even our church experiences. I've been to so many church experiences and retreats and so forth, but everybody comes as an I, and they work on themselves as an I, hoping to go out better as an I.
Mm-hmm.
And they may have a little connectedness, but they're not ever an I enough, integrated enough to be present with each other as a we.
Yeah. And we has to be compassionate.
If you're going to be human, we has to be compassionate.
Yeah. So compassion towards that part of us, but compassion towards the critic part of us, and then as human beings and as a whole, compassionate towards each other.
Yeah. Jesus said it so well. Love your neighbors, you love yourself. Problem is, if you don't love yourself, you're not going to really love your neighbor.
Yeah.
I mean, it starts inside.
Yeah. So good. This is such a great process. And so the question I want to ask is, what should a person do that wants to experience this? And so could you talk about your course and your, how you could get in touch with the spiritual director and those kind of things, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, sure. The course is called Growing Bigger Than What's Provoking You. Okay. Exclamation point. And it is a video course. It's online. It's the 5 practices, and there's a video teaching each of the 5 practices. There's a PDF that people can print off and to see there's something in their hand. Mm-hmm. And then there's a woman a very delightful woman who went through the course and allowed me to videotape her reactions and reflections on each of the steps.
Mm-hmm.
In addition, I do a segment with her about inner critic, like we just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And we do a short mini focusing session, and you can see her reactions as we go through that process.
Mm.
There's no tests. You can come dressed as you want to.
That's right.
You can look at them anytime you want to. You can even chew gum. I tease people, you can chew gum while you're watching it. It makes no difference.
And it's still free, right?
And it's still free.
All right.
The website for it, or the link to it, is Heart Connection, and that's spelled odd. It's HEARTCONNEXION
Mm-hmm.
dot thinkific, THINKIFIC.com. Heartconnection.thinkific.com.
Okay.
And people who go through that process, it kind of builds a foundation, 5 practices. At the end, currently, I'm offering a free focusing session to walk through a live focusing session with me.
Mm-hmm.
And then if people want more than that, we can arrange for that. And so I'm going to be offering that as, option. We also have a focusing, HCS focusing Facebook group that people are going through the class can interact with each other. I'm on Facebook, Paul Fitzgerald, Paul D. Fitzgerald. Heart Connection's on Facebook. Heart Connection is spelled like I just spelled it a moment ago.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, we'll put all those links
sure
out with this what is it, a podcast?
Yeah.
It's a Zoom session right now. It's going to be a podcast. And like I said, I'm really excited about this. Someday I'll have the inflection in my voice to express that, but I'm really excited, and I know you are too. I can tell that you're jazzed up about this as well. It's extremely effective, fairly simple, and it just touches down at the deep part of us that changes, that can change. And
yeah. And we'll be offering some more work. I mean, it's one of the pieces that is really powerful about focusing. Most of the focusing that I'm teaching up to this point is kind of solo focusing. So you're kind of doing it yourself,
mm-hmm.
which is very helpful. I've also found that learning how to companion with somebody who's focusing and then have them companion you while you're focusing can create a powerful empathetic environment that deepens the process.
Mm-hmm.
And so over time, I'll be offering some options and experiences to do that too.
Yeah. So another kind of sub option is out on Desert Sanctuary. We offer the contemplative companion groups a couple times a week, and those are not focusing, but they are kind of a soft introduction, a group that we kind of feel safe, and it's a we group, as Dr. Paul kind of mentioned. It's a we experience more than an I experience. So invite you to come out to that. Also to look up, if you haven't already, to look up the Desert Sanctuary on Facebook. I really love that place. It's not a discussion group, really. It's just a place where people can post and read posts and kind of be there for each other. There's a lot of relationships kind of building and people getting to know each other. I love that. And I'd love to see more of that and less politics and things like that online, and less political discussions and things. But we invite you out. Dr. Paul Fitzgerald, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming, spending all this time with me. This is going to be good. This is going to help people. And
it's always a pleasure, Carl. Always a pleasure.
All right. Have a good day, man. We'll see you soon.